That's right. John Henry,
John Henry.
an American legend.
I think he used to be I think he used to be a slave.
Well, he's almost certainly descended from slaves. I don't think he was a slave himself in the story, but his grandparents or great grandparents or somebody that might almost certainly was.
Son.
That's the moon. A hush settled over the hills. The sky swirled soundlessly round the moon. The river stopped murmuring. The wind. Okay, see you later. The wind stopped whispering, and the frogs and the owls and the crickets fell silent, all watching and waiting and listening. Then the river roared. The wind whispered and whistled and sang. The frogs croaked, the owls hooted, and the crickets chirped. Welcome, welcome, echoed through the hills, and John Henry was born with a hammer in his hand. Bang, 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 rang. What do you have there? What is that? Let me see that. Ah, jeez. Bang, 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 rang little John Henry's hammer through the cabin as he crawled about. What's that rascal up to now? His mother chuckled, and before she knew it, he was big enough to help her around the house. As he grew up, he did a man's work with his father. One day, John Henry thought, I'm taller and stronger than anyone around. It's time I went out into the world. He said goodbye to his mother and father, and off he went. He worked on farms and in cotton fields. But all that was too tame, so he got himself a job on a riverboat. One stormy night, the ship plowed through the darkness. Suddenly, the big steel rod that turned the paddle wheel broke. The wheel stopped turning. Smash went the rod through the bottom of the ship. Pump water, shouted the captain. Get to port before we sink. John Henry leaped to the paddle wheel crank. He seized it, pushed, grunted, and pulled. Slowly, the giant wheel turned. With all his strength, he kept it turning. Lord Almighty, help us, someone whispered in that long, dark night. Day broke. They sighted shore and pulled into port. A thunderous cheer went up for John Henry. John Henry felt a new excitement in the air. Men were talking of railroads being built from the Atlantic to the Pacific. They're going to lay those tracks over rivers, across prairies and deserts, and right through mountains, and through Indian lands, and stampeding buffalo herds and badlands. Goodbye, boys! Cried Badlands. I think that's it, kind of in the desert and in the mountains where the terrain is very rough. There's not a lot of water. Maybe they're poisonous animals. They're American Indians who might not want you around and might attack you. So it's really a really rough place to be. Through Badlands. Goodbye, boys! Cried John Henry. I'm going to swing me a hammer on them beautiful new tracks. My hands are just itching to hold a hammer again, John Henry said. He tried one for size and laughed. It sure does feel fine. How he drove those spikes, pardon me, singing to the clanging of his hammer. The men joined in, their voices singing, hammers ringing. John Henry's gang was in the lead. Day after day, the tracks moved steadily.
Slowly.
Which way? Which direction did the tracks move?
East.
From east to
west.
They went out west. That's right, steadily westward. Rising across their path was a sprawling mountain range. Its snow-capped peaks reached high into the hills. We'll have to tunnel through, said his friend, Little Bill. It'll be awfully dangerous. Could be cave-ins, someone put in. That suits me fine, said John Henry. Me too, added Little Bill. Here's how we'll do it, boys, the foreman called out. A couple of men will drive a hole into the rock. Then the powder men will put dynamite into the hole and explode it.
Wow!
The others will cart the loose rock away. We'll do this again and again until we have a tunnel right through this mountain. And it's going to be a real big tunnel, boys. Big enough for a giant locomotive pulling one of them long strings of trains. All right, boys, blast away! Deep into the mountain they worked. John Henry's singing echoed through the tunnel. The powder men got ready to blast more rock. They filled a hole with dynamite, put in a long fuse, and lit it. Run, men! Cried the foreman. They all scrambled back, ready to dash clear of the blast. At that instant came a great cracking and rumbling of the entire tumble, the entire tunnel.
He lose his.
Yeah, they're dropping
pip.
stuff. And the
How
entire.
can we lose?
Okay, we'll do that after
how
this.
How can we lose his pip?
Because I think the wall is falling in, and it's an emergency, so they're running around, and he's not thinking about holding on to that. It's a cave-in, and the entire tunnel trembled around them. It's a cave-in. We're trapped. There was no place to run. The fuse burned closer to the dynamite. John Henry was nearest the fuse. He ran to put it out, but tripped and fell. "Oh, I'm hurt bad," he groaned. "I can't get up." The fuse burned farther out of reach. Others rushed toward it, but they were too far away. Suddenly, John Henry remembered. He still had his hammer in his hand. Down came the hammer. Smack on the burning tip. The fuse was out. Danger past. Sighs of relief filled the smoky tunnel. "Whew! Help me up, boys," mumbled John Henry. Clearing their way through the cave-in, the men carried him to safety. Some days later, they heard an unfamiliar clatter. It's like a steam engine. Down the tunnel came a group of men with a strange machine. This is a steam drill. It can drill more holes faster than any 6 men combined, a new man bragged. "Who can beat that?" John Henry stepped forward. "Try me."
He's angry.
He is a bit concerned, yes. He and Lil Bill took their workplaces. John Henry gripped his hammer. Lil Bill clutched his steel drill. "Check the machine," came an order. A nervous hand fell on the switch. In the dark, both sides waited for the signal to start. A hoarse voice counted. 1, 2, 3. The machine shrieked as it started. John Henry swung his hammer. The crash of steel on steel split the air. Clang, bang, clang. The drill got red hot in Lil Bill's hand. He quickly dropped it and picked up another. His whistle rattled. Men frantically heaved coal into the hungry, roaring engine and poured water into the steaming boiler. Whoop, clang, whoop, bang! John Henry's hammer whistled as he swung it. Chug, chug, clatter, rattled the machine. Hour after hour raced by. The machine was ahead. "Hand me that 20-pound hammer, Lil Bill." Harder and faster crashed the hammer. I think they're serious. They're working hard. Great chunks of rock fell as John Henry ripped hole after hole into the tunnel wall. The machine rattled and whistled and drilled even faster. Friends doused John Henry and Lil Bill with cold water to keep them going. "Give it to me." "I'll take it. I'll hold it until we're finished." "I'll hold it until we're finished." Then John Henry took a deep breath. He picked up 2 sledgehammers and sang, "Ain't no hammers strike such fire, strike like lightning, Lord, and I won't tire. Hammers like this, Lord, there's never been. I'll keep swinging 'em, Lord, until we win." John Henry swung both mighty hammers faster and faster. He moved so fast.
Who is that guy?
I'm not sure.
He
looks like maybe an engineer. That cap kind of looks like an engineer, a railroad engineer's cap, but I'm not sure. He moved so fast the men could see only a blur and sparks from his striking hammers. His strokes rang out like great heartbeats. At the other side of the tunnel, the machine shrieked, groaned, and rattled and drilled. Then all at once it shook and shuddered, wheezed, and stopped. Frantically, men worked to get it going again, but they couldn't. It had collapsed. John Henry's hammering still rang and echoed through the tunnel with a strong and steady beat. Suddenly there was a great crash. Light streamed into the dark tunnel. John Henry had broken through. Wild cries of joy burst from the men. Still holding one of his hammers, John Henry stepped out into the glowing light of a dying day. It was the last step he ever took. Even the great heart of John Henry.
How was the last step he ever took?
Because even the great heart of John Henry could not bear the strain of this last task. He worked so hard. I guess his heart, maybe he had a heart attack. John Henry died with his hammer in his hand. If you listen to the locomotives roaring through the tunnels and across the land, you'll hear them singing of that great steel-driving man, John Henry. Listen.
Now let's do